Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. If you've been a long-time viewer, you've seen this before, but I've had a few ideas since my first video for my submarine yacht idea that I've had floating around in my head for quite a while. And I've had a couple of updates based off of some features that I would like for it to have, which I think I kind of discussed in the previous iteration of this, but I want to kind of go over my refinements to the process. So in the first video, we talked about wanting to, this crazy idea of wanting to create a submarine yacht that basically made it to where you could travel underwater and have this awesome, nice, transparent material in the front of the submarine that would give you a panoramic view of the ocean as you're traveling along wherever it is that you want to go. The basic idea was something along the lines of getting a very large industrial-sized propane tank, obviously doing some interior structural reinforcement just to make sure that you have enough structural stability or structural integrity to be able to go down a decent way before having to worry about getting crushed to death. And then the transparent material at the front would be some kind of maybe really thick acrylic or maybe sapphire or something like that, something that has a really high ability to withstand pressure. I don't know how you would mate the clear material to the metal material. That's something that an engineer would have to figure out. This is just a vague half-ass idea I have in my head. But the idea is that this would be a long-range ocean-going craft that would allow you to basically do what sailboats do. We'll sail around the world and visit nice, awesome places and be able to do that kind of a thing. But do it in a way that's just different from what everyone else is doing. And it's completely insane. It's completely ridiculous. If I had the money, I would absolutely try to build this because, you know, it's different. It's cool. It's no one else would be doing something like this. And, you know, I would really be interested in trying to figure out a way to make this happen, but I don't have that kind of money. But anyways, I just want to take you real quick through the basic concept, basic layout again, because I've updated it slightly. Well, I've updated the interior slightly, but I've updated the exterior quite a bit. So the original version of this, actually, give me a second, and maybe I can just bring it up. Let me pause the video and see if I can just bring up the original version. Okay, yeah, so this was the original version. Obviously, I'm going for a modern nuclear submarine style thing. And the reason for that is that my goal is to design something that allows you to stay submerged for long periods of time. Maybe, obviously not indefinitely, but the purpose, one of the main purposes behind wanting to go with the submarine design, a submarine yacht kind of a thing, is to get away from the waves. Get away from a setting where you have to be bobbing up and down and doing all of that kind of stuff. If you can get down low enough that wave action is minimized and you can have a relatively stable platform, then this would obviously be the ideal option if that's what you're going for. And this typical modern submarine design is good for that. The original idea I had just like a basic snorkel, but you'd have to be really close to the surface for that, and that wasn't really what I was looking for. You need to get down to about 150 feet of depth before you really get rid of most of the normal wave action that you're going to encounter out in the ocean. And having a snorkel that goes up 150 feet is just not reasonable. So, and there was also the problem of one of the cool things about the idea that I have is being able to just leave your submarine parked on the bottom rather than having it floating at the surface, which does a few things. It makes it safe from thieves and attack and anybody who's trying to get on board your vessel, and it also reduces the risk of other things hitting it because you're at the bottom rather than on the surface. So other ships aren't going to run into you, other sailboats aren't going to drag their anchors into you, things like that. So there's a couple of benefits and a couple of things, but obviously trying to keep it on the bottom presents a couple of challenges. How do you put it on the bottom when you're getting out of it? You know, that kind of thing. So while this idea was I think was a pretty decent first attempt, we had the cockpit up here with some extra seating so that when you're viewing things out in the front, you can see. You have the kitchen right here, a little seating area, dining area right here, and then a couple of bedrooms. And then the sail up here would elevate you out of the water when you're trying to get out. But there were several things about the this initial basic design that just didn't address some of the things that I wanted to get done. So this is the new version of what I've come up with, and there are some very specific reasons why the top of the submarine has changed. So obviously I've updated this a little bit to make the front area a little bit more of a hangout space, because obviously if you could figure out a way to get a securely attached transparent dome up here in the front, then everybody's going to want to hang out up here all the time on the off chance that maybe something swims in front of you, or you see something, or when you visit a place and you're actually looking around at a reef or something like that, everybody's going to want to be hanging out in the front. I put the kitchen right over here, and then because of the rearranging that I did, it made it to where I can have one little smaller extra bedroom in here. I didn't get around to putting another wall in, but there's a little side passageway that you walk around on the far side of the submarine that takes you all the way through to the rooms and the doors. There's a little mini head back here, a wet head that you would shower in, and then you would have to visualize the dome on this other side. I couldn't put the dome in here and also get this structural piece here that would hold you need to have some kind of flow coming off the back to minimize drag. So there would be a pressure vessel, the end of the pressure vessel here, the propeller shaft would go through that, and then there will be a superstructure piece right here that holds the propeller and all of that. So the reason that this design here is what it is because I wanted to make it to where you could park the sub on the bottom and then elevate yourself from the bottom all the way up to the top, up to the surface. So the way that this works is that this pressure vessel right here has a docking hatch, basically, and you would climb up into this part right here, close everything off, let depressurize, or whatever the term is for letting the water come in between the docking ports here after you make sure everything's all closed up, and then this would float up to the surface like this. Right? So it'd be kind of like an elevator where you float up to the surface, and then obviously you wouldn't be able to leave a dinghy attached, but I'm thinking some kind of inflatable system, inflatable dinghy that you would use. You would deflate it when it's going to submerge. You would take the engine off and maybe put it inside, because obviously the engine can't just stay attached like that. There would be some work that you would have to do to make all of this work, but ideally the frame of the dinghy would be attached to the top of this. You would float up to the surface, climb out. Obviously, this isn't a final design. I know there's a million things that would need to be changed, and of course, this idea is completely insane in the first place. It's just something I think is a cool idea in my head. There's a million things that would need to be worked out. But ideally, it would float up to the surface, you would climb out, inflate the dinghy, get the motor installed, and then ideally, you would have some kind of remote control system that would allow the elevator to come all the way back down to the bottom so that it stays here with the submarine. You zip off in your dinghy to go do whatever activities it is that you're going to do. You come back, you use the remote to bring the dinghy, bring the elevator part back up, reattach everything, climb back down inside, pull yourself back down to the sub, and back inside you go. So this right here, and then I said in the first video that there would be some kind of flat bottom drop weights that you would have here, because I would want to make this entire setup such that without drop weights on the bottom, there's no way that it could ever be negatively buoyant. I want most of the weight that submerges the submarine to come from those drop weights, so that when you drop them in an emergency situation, no matter how you're configured, it floats you back up to the surface no matter what. So it would have the reason I bring that up right now is that the flat bottom would make it so that you could settle the submarine on the bottom, leave it sitting there, elevate up to the surface, set up your dinghy, drop this back down, zip off and do whatever it is that you're going to do. Then you come back, raise it back up, attach it, come back down, get back in the sub, and everything's back to normal. So that's this front part over here. It's basically an elevator with whatever dinghy you want to have attached to the top in a way that makes it so that when you submerge with it, it doesn't destroy anything. Obviously, you would have to have a dinghy design that's capable of doing that. People smarter than me could figure that part out, but that's the basic idea. Now, this other pressure vessel back over here, this one over here, this is specifically related to the engine. My original idea was actually to just have one pressure vessel to use for everything that I wanted to do, but at the same time, trying to cram all of the components into one little thing, especially when you're going to have to get people in here to sit in this as it comes up to the top, isn't really reasonable. So my latest iteration of this in my mind is to have a separate little pressure vessel that does more or less the same thing as this, except it has one single basically umbilical. I couldn't figure out a good way. Just visualize this single line as some kind of an umbilical system that's attached to this. And then obviously it has a snorkel that pops up. And the purpose of this is to obviously to exchange air, obviously for the environment, but also to feed to provide air for the diesel engine, because this entire submarine setup is going to be a diesel electric setup. Diesel generator to power an electric motor that powers the propeller that allows you to move around. And that's basically what that is. And the umbilical would make it so that we could exchange air to keep everybody able to breathe when we need to do that. And then provide oxygen for the diesel motor to be able to run, so that it can charge the batteries and power the thing when we're that close. And then ideally, my thought process is that if you can make an umbilical long enough, I mean, obviously it's going to be more than 150 feet dragging it behind you, but if you can make it to where you could cruise at 150 feet and then just have this kind of floating near the surface with the snorkel sticking up, you know, several hundred feet behind you, I guess. You could get constant air coming. You could have a camera system up here that allows you to basically have a periscope all the time, anytime you're doing that. And then when you don't want to have it up and you have enough battery power and all of your other systems are all charged up, you reel it back in, it comes back down, and you're back in this configuration, and you're just cruising along until you need to recharge the batteries again. So that's kind of my updated thought process on my submarine design. Obviously, this could feasibly use standardized propane tanks. I obviously wouldn't recommend buying used propane tanks to do this unless you have the ability to just completely scour everything out of it. But, you know, if you could buy an already standard designed pressure vessel that you then reinforce from the interior with some stiffening rings and things like that, you cut off one of the ends of it, you figure out some kind of transparent material that you can mate to that surface in a way that's safe and is going to work, then you could basically make this work, because the smaller propane tanks would all just be the same kind of thing, smaller sizes, and you just have to figure out all of the systems and things that I'm coming up with. I mean, I have a vague idea in my head as to how all of that would work, but it would take me forever to make a video trying to actively detail all of that. But yeah, this is my insane, crazy idea for a long-range submarine yacht kind of thing, which honestly I think would also be really cool to use as like a research vessel kind of setup too, like for a small crew. Have a small crew of people just you know, skimming along the bottom near the continental shelf. You wouldn't want to take this any further than about 150 feet anyways, because you know, human beings can't survive really from that depth unless you have some really specific training. Obviously, you could take it down to several hundred feet probably. I believe the maximum pressure rating for these propane tanks is well beyond 500 feet of ocean water, but you wouldn't want to do that because A, the light starts getting dim down there, and B, survivability if something catastrophic happens becomes an issue as well. So, you know, ideally 90 some odd % of the time you're either at the surface or down to maybe 150 feet just to get away from the waves. And then, you know, every once in a while, if you have a need to go deeper down to go investigate something, you can do that. But yeah, I think this would be a really cool idea for, you know, just somebody who has money and would be interested in creating a submarine yacht of this kind, or, you know, using it as a research vessel, because if you can stay submerged for long periods of time, having the little umbilical snorkel thingy here dragging along behind you, I think that would be kind of cool. So yeah, that's my idea. This is my update. I just wanted to make another quick little video about it because I'm the kind of person who I have weird ideas like this, and until I can actually visualize it with my eyes and not just in my head, it won't go away. So hopefully, now that I've made this video and I've shared it, and it's this ridiculous thing that I've put out in the world, one of two things will happen. It will finally come out of my brain and I'll be able to leave it alone, or somebody with money will see it and be like, hey, I want to help you build that because I think that's kind of cool. I don't know. But anyways, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Click the like button. Hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of the video game videos that I do. This is just kind of a one-off thing. And if you'd like to support our work that we're doing on the channel here, you can always become a member. You'll get early access to videos, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. So again, thanks for watching. Enjoy my super crazy, ridiculous idea, and I'll see you for the next one.